All right, starting it up.
This guy.
Tweet sent.
Hey, it's time.
I mean, this Stream Deck is like super cool. I wish that I had a desk with like a camera and stuff set up, and then
Camera and stuff.
Yeah,
camera and stuff. I need. I think.
1, 2, 3.
Yep, we're good. 1, 2, 3.
Mic check.
You all good?
And
Microphone
on the
check.
cool check-in.
Oh wait,
Center stage on the mic.
Jared, you need to join the Zencast, man.
We're putting them on blast.
I mean, I'm not putting them on blast.
The
I love
new
Jared.
style.
Jared's my homie. Shifty, we miss
4
you.
and 3 and 2 and 1.
I'm just jealous that Shifty's up there, man.
And when I'm on the mic, the suckers run.
Do they though?
Yeah, it's a Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Beastie Boys have a lot in common.
Yeah, they do. They do. Okay. I could probably. I'd like to see a list. Oh man.
Oh yeah. So I want to show you.
I think I'm gonna have to get a new mic soon.
This
Ooh,
is not.
Get you a
This is not the Splicer hoodie that I ordered.
Does it have
Okay.
somebody else's name on it? That's what I was going to ask you. Is it like a gamer tag thing? Because like my jacket has my gamer tag on it.
No, this is a Guardian Games jacket.
Okay.
There's no.
And you
this
didn't.
is
You
a-
ordered this the Spicer one, right?
Yeah.
Uh oh.
So. Like.
So they
this-
sent you the wrong item.
like the most simplest.
They didn't send you somebody else's order. They just sent you the wrong item.
So clearly, like this piece of paper says expunge hoodie.
Yeah.
The
Expunge hoodie, yeah.
Yeah. The only thing this says, it's Guardian Games tracksuit. Not even close to the same.
Have you put it on yet?
No. No, because like they only make so many of them. I don't want to be that asshole. But like, oh, if they send it to you, I'm gonna fucking wear it. No. But like,
Hey, we're live.
yeah.
Says Ryan.
Yeah. So, because I was like,
Yeah.
well, if that's somebody else's jacket, then like I'll send it to wherever they need me to send it to, or whatever.
You're such a good guy.
But I got email all that kind of craziness tomorrow to try to get it figured out.
Jared got me excited because he sends me a text message and he's like, "Hey, have you got anything from Bungie lately?" Keep in mind this is one day after they sent out all that Witch Queen stuff. So I was like, was I supposed to get something from Bungie? Because I
You gotta
thought
check
maybe
you gotta check the Conqueror's Corner PO box.
Oh, see, I checked. I was like, man, I haven't checked that email in forever. So I loaded it up, and then Jared's like, "Oh no, they just sent the wrong item. Sorry." I was like, "Come on, Jared."
Getting you so excited for nothing.
Yep.
Listen, every once in a while, I'll forsake the Corona extras and not buy them, and get a little too fancy for my britches, getting fancy beers.
Gotta go back to home.
But then I'll get me some Coronas, and it makes me kind of feel like Vin Diesel in Fast and the Furious, you know? And get some of this 100% real lime juice to put down in the Corona.
It's so convenient.
Just a little
Yep.
squeeze. Yeah.
But because not only can you put it in your Corona, you can also put it on your tacos.
Yep.
So
Also make some meals.
Yeah.
what'd you just say to me?
Make some meals.
Yeah, that's true. The Moscow variety.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. All right. Oh, I gotta give it a stretch.
Chad, you got all your fans off and shit?
Dude, I'm telling you, that's what I was gonna say. Is I think I'm gonna get a new mic.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't even a fan. My roommate decided to vacuum on a Thursday night, and I'm like, what? Why?
What are you going with? You should either get the mic
don't know.
that I have or the mic that Jared has. In all seriousness,
I know. We'll talk about it later.
maybe there's some people in the pre-show that are curious about mics.
Maybe there's a sponsor out there that wants to sponsor Chad for his mic.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
That'd be great.
You just
Sure. I've worked with Shure for a long time because I did AV for weddings and stuff. So I've used their equipment.
trying to think of, Jared, is yours the SM57 or the SM58? One is like a instrument microphone and the other is a vocal microphone.
58.
But I can't remember which is which. 58.
Yeah, it's something I'm gonna look into down the line, like probably this weekend or whenever I'm doing my flush, drain, and fill on my computer. That's weird to say.
How are you going to feel about having to actually be up on the mic instead of it being far away from you?
Like I said, I've acted and done singing for a long time, so having a mic like right here is really not a big issue. It's something that I've been used to. So having it over there is odd. It's nice because it's out of the way, but like I'm used to.
It's kind of weird because
here.
you watch like other or listen to other podcasts and that people don't ever speak into the mic, and you'll hear them like, "Hey, you need to scoot up to the mic or whatever." But like I never really had that.
It is a weird thing.
I kind of just went right into it. I was like deep throating that Shure that Jared has before he got it. So,
it was crazy. I watched some like old like Call of Duty videos from like Modern Warfare days, like whenever it was like 2010, 2011, and like, my God, we all sounded so terrible through those headset mics on Xbox.
I know, so bad. You can even listen to like. I think it was like episode 0 of our podcast. We didn't sound real good either. I think me and Jared were both still on the headset mics.
Yeah, well, like I like screwed with like because this one was supposed to have like the blue microphone built into it, but I had it setting so it sounds good in Discord, but it sounded terrible on Zencaster.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like one or the other type of deal.
Which it has settings to change it all, but I was like, I'm not even. You said, hey, come get this. I was like, okay. I don't have to deal with that.
Yep. All right. Sounds good. Tiffany's like, how much did you spend on that mic? And I was like, oh, just a couple hundred. And then like 2 weeks later, she goes, I didn't know a couple hundred meant 400. And I was like, well, you didn't really ask. So that's on you as far as I'm concerned. All right.
Yeah.
Are we ready
to here, baby boy?
Ready to let the dogs out?
It's 45, right? But it's not Thursday 120 there, guy. There you go. You're welcome. That would have been fun.
What?
Hold on. What is it now?
No, the date was wrong on your intro.
Oh, I would have figured it out. Probably right as I went to read it. Right as I went to read it, I'd have been like, Make sure I got the music set right here. All right. Remember, I'm doing it a little different this time. So, Jared, you'll come in after the music, okay?
Okay.
Starting. I'm going to hit the recording button, and then it does a countdown. We are live for episode 45 of the Conqueror's Corner podcast. Today is Thursday, January 27th. I am not Ryan Fox, and I'm here with my fire team, Jared.
Man, hey, guys. I think the only thing worth doing nowadays is Grass Survivors Armor Farm, right?
And the chronicler himself, Chad Ocero.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Jared here. The real crazy spin, but it's that master grass boss over and over again is great.
And make sure if you guys are watching on YouTube, you can take us on the road, Spotify, iTunes, other podcast services. Make sure you subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, click the bell, all the other stuff, turn on notifications, yada, yada, yada. Follow us on Twitter at DestinyCCPod. Send us Bungie friend requests. Join the Discord server where Jared posts his God rolls every week and gets everybody furious. And the Dirty Effing Hippie brought us the TWAB this week. And Jared's going to get us rolling with that right after the intro music from our boy Link, who you can follow on Twitter at Link of Time G, just the letter G. And here we go.
All right, guys, we'll go ahead and jump right into this TWAB. And as Fox mentioned, Hippie wrote this one up for us, and she dropped a lot of information for us. There's a lot of stuff to go over, a lot of just like quality of life improvements as you like grind through a lot of reputation stuff in Witch Queen. So the first thing we're going to talk about is your Vanguard rank ups. So Bungie anticipated we'd be progressing through that a little bit faster than what we've gone through this season. So they're going to make a couple little changes to that. Just basically just increase the amount you get done per strike. So it should fall more in line with what Crucible is. I know, like, I think we've talked on here. If not, we've talked in game between me and Fox, and like Crucible seems like it goes by so quickly. Like, I think I probably have 4 resets in Crucible, and I think none of us are really like PvP mains. Like, most of the time we're spending playing PvE stuff. And so hopefully Vanguard rank falls more in line with that, and you can easily get your wishful weapon and that ornament done. So another reputation that's kind of fallen behind a little bit to what Bungie would like us to be at is Trials of Osiris. So they do mention that during the extra XP weekends is usually when like the solo playlist is in there. That's progressing really well, and like they've seen the rewards that people are getting and how fast they're ranking up, and seeing that. But overall, outside of those weekends, we're progressing about 30% slower than what they expected. So they're going to do just give you some little extra rep as you get farther into your card and get round wins underneath your belt. So let's say you maxed out at 20 wins and you have 7 wins on your card and you play a game. You're going to get some extra rep based on how many rounds you won in that game. So it's going to be 21 rep per round 1. So let's say you win the game, as an extra 105 reputation on that game win. So that's about 50% faster if you go through that way. Now, like Fox was doing early on in the season, he was really concerned about trying to go flawless every weekend to get like at least one of the adept weapons to have a trophy. Now, if you're doing that, you're still going to be falling a little bit behind reputation wise, because what this rep gain is for people that just continue to stay in there during the week and play on the same card over and over again, just continue to rank and rep. And that's what I've done a couple solo weekends. I just like don't care about flawless. I just want to get a Weeds Regret with some type of fire, with something with fire in line, right? So that's what I ended up doing the last solo weekend, and I got it, and it was very rewarding. So if they keep that kind of feeling going into Witch Queen, I think this population can really show out some loot and have a high population in it. And along with people going in there going for loot, they show us a picture here, and the Summoner is returning to Trials. We'll get on as we get on. We'll say what weapons are leaving, but I think this is a fan favorite 600 RPM auto rifle. I mean, whenever the 600 RPM auto rifle meta was going on during seasonal rifles, it was right there with Nogging Hunger, Like it was those two, and then hard light was like the three most used.
Man, I just want this gun for PvE purposes because every year, like that what's I call a year like a Destiny year, so 4 seasons. There's going to be an auto rifle champion meta at some point. So whether that be anti-barrier champions or whatever the case may be, I've already got that God roll, gnawing hunger. I know that anybody who would listen to this podcast definitely has it. It's if you don't have that, then you're a scrub more or less. So I just want the solar version of that with the summoner. I want that overflow rampage on that thing. That's what I want, and I'm hoping next season I'm going to be able to acquire that.
It's going to be really interesting what they do. Usually with these trials weapons, when they bring them back, they're going to have that new loot pool, usually with some of the new perks. So, maybe you get a dodge ability in there to go for demo a junkie roll, and then, there's a lot of good things going on with auto rifles and perks for PvE. Just a simple subsistence rampage goes so far on an auto rifle and feels amazing. And it's also used to be able to get overflow, Chad, and we know that auto rifles are getting overload champion mod next season.
Yeah, auto rifle overloads are always good. They are getting a consistency bump or change to make them more consistent, and that's going to be nice. I think that's a good thing that should have been done a long time ago, but I'm happy it's actually being done.
So Trials is also getting a brand new weapon next season, but they're not telling us what it is right now, and we know that Trials isn't going to be active until the weekend after the raid. So if I look at the calendar real quick,
that'd be what, like March the 12th or something like that. March the 11th.
The 11th. Yep, the 11th is when that trial should be active. So I'm sure.
So do you think they'll open up with the new one that first weekend? They did Reed's Regret was the first weekend this season, wasn't it?
I thought Shire's Wrath, and then Reed's was the second week.
I'm not sure. I thought it was Reed's, but you're probably right. I will take your.
It was one of the first 2 weeks at least, so it's going to be early on in Trials.
So what do you think? What do you think it'll be? Do you think it'll be a bow, maybe?
Gosh, I hope not. But
because they kind of have. They have a sniper, they have a shotgun, they have a fusion rifle. They've got the linear fusion rifle. And then they kind of have every other. They have the auto rifle. Really the only thing that's left is a bow, right? They have a sword.
It's going to be another stasis weapon, and it's going to be going in the primary that first slot, that kinetic stasis slot.
Okay. Do we have a kinetic bow?
Not a stasis. Oh. No, we don't have
a stasis bow.
No, we don't have a stasis bow. But what if they put a stasis fusion rifle in there?
They could also do a legendary linear, or not linear, a legendary trace.
Oh yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
That's true.
Could you imagine a trace rifle with a weird headstone kind of thing?
Yeah, because right now
it's not headstone. It's just
only has the one from Xur that's legendary, right? And it's solar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we do have Ager's Scepter, which is so I don't know. I think bow is where I would lean, but I would prefer it to be a trace rifle, personally.
Yeah. They got some holes out there to fill with some adept weapons that they haven't done before. So hopefully, I think we're going to need more stasis weapons, so always give us more of those. So get back to
are any of the current Nightfall adept weapons or any of those stasis? They're not, are they?
No.
Like really, like Ayas Luna, we got that, and
got Peace Bond.
There's really, and then like Fractithist and Peace Bond.
And then you have the 180,
and
the Vulpecula.
Yep. I don't know, man. We don't really have a lot of them, really, do we?
Nope.
As a smart podcast would have figured this out before they started recording and made a list of them, but that's not us.
Well, you just covered all of them that's in that first slot, and then in the heavy slot, you have grass. You got that exotic grenade launcher that nobody uses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then
the one that launched that was a cool mission to get though.
Yeah,
the mission was cooler than the gun. That's you realize how hard that is in Destiny, that the mission is cooler than the gun.
Yeah,
that's really saying a lot.
Yeah, so I imagine we will get some more stasis weapons this next season. All right, we'll get back on this reputation talk and finish it up. So, as we talked about Crucible, how fast we have gotten through it quite easily. So, they're leaving Crucible the way it is like they hit it on the nose of how fast they thought people were going to be progressing through it. So, that's good. But what about Gambit? Well, so what about Gambit? Nobody cares. No, Bungie's going to make some changes. So, Gambit's getting some type of rework. They're not telling us what it is yet, so it's got to be a TWAB coming up here soon. With the changes going to Gambit, they think they're going to have more players interact and stay inside the playlist, so they would actually be progressing through that reputation a little bit faster and more consistent with what they have been this last season. So they're going to let that play out and see how it goes.
Do you guys still like frequent DTG and stuff like that every day, or are you like me and you kind of stay away from it so you have your own original thoughts for the podcast?
I look at it every night, right? But I'm not reading through everything. I'm just like, is anything happening? Like, is there any like little secrets that's coming out about the game? Like somebody, did something weird and got into this weird zone, and all of a sudden, like, they're seeing bits and pieces of like other parts of the season left over or something like that. It just depends on what the title is. It depends on if I'm reading about it or not.
I mean, I'm a very regular Redditor at work. It's been a little bit less this last 2 weeks, but that's for obvious reasons. But yeah, I mean, I'll go to it like on Tuesday reset just to see the weekly change, see if anything happens. Usually nothing does. And then kind of try to stay away from the salt, maybe go through a low sodium Destiny, just to see people having fun. But I mean, really it's only to see if somebody has like, hey, check out this build, try it out, it's a lot of fun, and look for those posts. I like skim through the posts really fast and then jam out of there and go look up like Reddit fast food and some other random stuff that'll help me get through the day.
I'm not familiar with that fast food. I have to check that out.
It's a good one. Yeah.
So I since we started this podcast, I've tried to stay away from Facebook groups, Reddit threads, anything that can sway my opinion. I've tried to stay away from. That way I'm not just voicing what I read on Reddit. So I did have some time at work today, and I was looking, and there's apparently like Gambit is at the most toxic it's ever been at the moment. Specifically, was it this week or last week that was double XP for Gambit?
Yeah.
And I guess people are making LFG posts and then like kicking people, like say like us three got in there, and then we would say we needed a fourth to grind, and then we would just kick everybody once we got the primeval. Or we would purposefully kill ourselves once the primeval spawned. So like the primeval's health would keep going. Just like a lot of trolling in there. And I guess it is an absolute cesspool at the moment. So I saw a Reddit thread about it and actually kind of read through it because you guys know that I have a very soft spot for Gambit compared to most people. So I saw that, and that's I didn't know if you guys had dabbled in there recently at all, or if you guys had witnessed any of that. I haven't, but I have noticed people there must be something to where people are back to killing their primeval real quick. Like I'm talking like 100 to 0 in under 2 seconds quick. So anytime you get a 4 stack in there, you're in big trouble at the moment.
It's actually something that I haven't talked to Chad yet, but I was going to give him an assignment before the day one raid, right? And like this is like an absolute need to have, right? And it's that hammer Titan that there's a mini hammer and it bounces around and like you get a 1-2 punch shotgun and boop it with a tractor cannon and do that. That's what Chad needs to spend his next 3 weeks here just mastering that.
I'll just sit on Riven. It'll be me sitting on Riven's foot doing that, and
bring Zen with you. That way, both of our Titans are ready to roll.
Mm. And if you was gonna throw a fit about, it's like, all right, I'll load up Titan and do it with you. But yeah,
yeah, it's. I will need to spend a lot of time. I'll probably be training in like Master and Legend Lost sectors on my obviously my preferred input method, and then working on that because you got your charged melee button and your uncharged melee button, and you got to make sure that those are different and good to go. Yep.
I still haven't went in and unmapped those. I don't know.
I mean, it's only necessary for weird stuff like this.
Yeah, I mean, like, dude, I'm a warlock. Like, really, what is my what do I need to unmap it for?
Nothing. The Titan is literally only the Titan and maybe the Hunter, depending on the subclass, so that you don't like lunge at somebody with your knife and you throw it instead. That's about it. It's literally the Titan with his hammer and then the Hunter when he has a knife, and that's it. Those are the only 2 times that's really, really necessary.
I'll do it whenever Witch Queen drops, because I'll have 150 hours in before the raid comes out. So like my brain will it'll be, what is it? You need 10,000 hours before your brain thinks it. Yeah. Shout out Malcolm Gladwell for that. But yeah, so I'll have about that in the 2 weeks leading up to the raid probably. So be ready to roll.
Yeah. Yeah. I flipped it on and I've never took it off. Like I've always kept them separate whenever they first gave me that ability. Like it took,
I guess so I have I would have to put it on my mouse. And I guess I do have 4 extra mouse buttons, but one is the interact button, one's the melee, one's the sword charge or the sword guard, and one's the finisher. Because whenever I didn't have the finisher on there, I threw my super a lot on accident, trying to reach the G over top of the F, because F was my super and G was my finisher. So I don't know. I'm about to figure something out.
You just need to change over to the G502. I'll solve all your problems.
How many buttons do you have on that?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, well, I have 5 buttons on the left side, including the 2 mouse ones. And then you have an additional one that's underneath the scroll wheel. And then the scroll wheel also goes left and right.
That's too many buttons, dude. There's too many buttons. I'm gonna stick with this one, and
Lightspeed. Yeah.
We'll be good.
Yep. All right, let's get back to
the G Pro Wireless. That's what it's called.
Okay.
Not a sponsor.
Logitech, if you want to sponsor us, you feel free.
Yep.
I use your keyboard too. Use your keyboard. So we're ready.
Yep. Also keyboard and mouse headset.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Here we go. So overall, Bungie wants us to get through these reputation ranks a little bit faster and feel rewarded for grinding out the ornaments and the witch roll weapons as we play through this season. Also, within the season, how last week Gambit had the extra rewards. That's actually going to show up when you go to click on the playlist now. It's going to actually show you as a modifier that there's additional rep getting earned during that week or weekend for trials. All right, next thing up is Vanguard Ops. This is something we've kind of touched on in the past, and that is how the Vanguard Strike playlist is getting the battlegrounds from Season of the Chosen. And So everything that used to say Vanguard Strikes is now just straight Vanguard Ops. And those battlegrounds are going to be like the basic version of them, where there's no champions. You're not going to encounter the champions of them in the regular Strike playlist. So they didn't say if they're going to be a part of the Nightfall rotation. That could be pretty difficult with some of the bosses at the end, because they just they buff the heck out of their health. And that might be a little bit of a headache if those have to be Grandmaster level.
I think Nightfalls are going to be staying Nightfalls as strikes, and the Vanguard Ops is a mixed thing, so that makes sense. And I do like that they took the champions out of it, because that was part of the gripe doing the battlegrounds, was that you're the only person going in with any mods, and it was a huge pain.
Yeah.
But without those, it's like, okay, now a Blueberry can go in there and take care of enemies for us. It's not a big deal. But we'll see how much easier it is, how much faster you can get through it.
Yeah. It's gonna be nice to the playlist. All right, next thing we'll get into Nightfall changes. So there was a lot of strike-specific modifiers that was added this season. It'll just become like normal things that's going to happen in a Nightfall. So one I'm always thinking of is it's like stasis melee. It's like every time you get melee by an enemy, they automatically apply stasis to you, which is terrible whenever that happens. And now we're going to have to deal with that in Nightfalls too. And then there's some other ones that actually give you a little bit of a benefit, like thermal swap or something like that, where you your stasis grenade recharges super fast, your solar grenade charges a little bit faster, and then the other grades have no benefit to them. So that's just going to change stuff up, and it's pretty nice because we've been playing in the same Nightfalls for I don't know how long now. And then the next thing they're doing, they're taking away the strike-specific modifier. So you think of Sadia and how she has that boot mechanic, how it's now just straight up taken away, and after they nerfed it 3 times, they're just straight up taking that modifier away.
Man, I actually ran that Nightfall on, is it Hero? Is that the highest light level that match makes you?
Yeah.
Like Adept and then a Hero. So I ran that, and man, I feel like I got the dumbest Destiny players in the planet trying to run that with me, because I had to run through, and I was trying to get kills with Ascendancy and Scavenger Salvo, like the stuff for the MMXXI title. And you had to get so many kills with the ritual weapons in strikes. It was the last one I needed, and I think I maybe had already got the ornament for the Ascendancy, but either way, I'm running it, and I was like, I'm just gonna run the Nightfall just to make this go a little faster. And that strike is absolutely brutal. The first time you fight Sedia or Cedia, however you say it, in the 3 platform area, whenever you have dummies on your team, it is an absolute, you get overrun so fast, and everybody spreads out and they die in 4 seconds, and you're trying to survive 26 in order for them to respawn themselves, and not a lot of fun. And then, God forbid, you get booped because your teammates are getting booped off the edge at that final part. So that strike's pretty painful, in my opinion.
I think that strike is 85% of what a dungeon can be. It's a sparrow portion away from being a dungeon. You think it compared to Prophecy, they're not far off from each other. It's pretty close to being about to what Prophecy is.
I guess really it's, what is that, one more boss encounter away from being a dungeon, probably.
Yeah.
Thank God it doesn't take you back to orbit if you die, if you wipe, rather.
Yeah. All right. We'll continue on with some Nightfall modification changes. So they're adding a new mod called Acute. And basically, it's like solar burn on steroids, right? So let's say it's solar burn that week, but it's solar acute. Enemies that put out fire damage are going to do an additional 50% damage to you. However, you also deal an extra 25% solar damage to them. Before, if it was solar burn on, that was just enemies doing an extra 25% damage with solar, and you do no benefit at all. So again, this is going to change up the Nightfall feel a little bit. I imagine like maybe on this solar week, like 3 Gjallarhorn, well, at least 1 Gjallarhorn, maybe some additional Celestial Nighthawks to like one shot maybe some of these Nightfall bosses quite quickly and get them done.
They're going more towards the way Burns worked in D1. D1 was obviously a massive difference. I think it was like enemies get 2 times, you get 1.5. I think it was for Burns. So it's a little bit closer to that, but it's not as crazy. I do remember going in on Solar Burn for the Prison of Elders with galleys and just absolutely molly-whopping that boss, just loading in, going to the left, and then bang. Yeah.
On that week 1 of that, because week 2 and week 3 were much more difficult than week 1, which normally you don't face that because your power level, aka your light level, kind of is higher for those second weeks. But God, whenever you couldn't use Gjallarhorn, he was not real fun to fight.
Yep. No, but they're headed back towards that direction, and it's nice. You're gonna have like Jared said, they're gonna do 50% more damage, so you be a little bit more careful. But also, we're gonna do more. So our guns are there's gonna be a little more coordination with that acuteness.
So, assuming you're running with blueberries and not like our pre-made fire team or people from our raid team, what strike do you let's say like Nightfall, like the matchmaking Nightfall, what strike do you hate the most to see come up on there?
Exorcist Crash. Because usually arc burns on, I'm out.
I'm there with you on Exodus Crash, if only because they reduced the boopening on Corrupted, because I had a point where we wiped 7, 8, maybe 9 times because it was blueberries on just the beginning stage of the boss. We didn't even get to chasing her. Yeah, oh man, it was horrible. But they changed it, and it's like, okay, it's not as bad. But Exodus Crash with Arcburn is no. No.
The only thing that saves Exodus Crash for me, that it's not a long strike. Like you have that first area where you drive through the blue cylinder things, and then you're basically at the part where you do the ghost. You drive through some more cylinders, and then you go through a little area, and you're at the boss. But it's almost what's the like the Corrupted is rough, especially. Let's be honest. If they can't handle the parts with Setia, they can't throw the damn taken bombs at each other. So whenever that happens, you're the one, and you got to throw 3 of those taken orbs to take down the shield and the elevator section. So I think Corrupted, just out of length, I want to give a hat tip to what's the battlegrounds? The Cabal Strike, Proving Grounds. Yeah. That I want to give an honorable mention to Proving Grounds. Corrupted 1, Proving Grounds 2, Exodus Crash. I don't even hate to see that one anymore. That one doesn't bother me in the slightest.
All right, well, at least we have Overload SMG. We can just put on Visquino and survive. All right, get back to some Nightfall changes here. So we talked about how they introduced new mods this last season, and season 16 they're also going to introduce a couple more new ones, and they're going to be centered around the glaive and void usage. So since we're getting void 3.0 and the new glaive weapon, so you can look for some additional modifiers in there for them specifically. Another thing they're changing is whenever Nightfall match game is on, it's actually going to tell us what shields to expect inside the Nightfall. So that's also no more like trying to look up a Reddit post or look up something where like trying to figure out, is it one void shield or is it one solo shield of the West Arc? You know, you just after you
Right.
So that's a nice change.
We do have that one graphic from what's his name, Nearus or whatever, Niris. Give him a shout out. He puts out sweet graphics for the Nightfalls every week. So, but I think he puts one out that says like, if it's this strike, you need these. These are the shields you see. So I love that guy. Thank you for your service, Nearus.
So just like lost sectors tell you what shields are in there. So speaking of lost sectors, they're also getting a little change next season. But before I get into that, Bungie did show us a little preview of 2 weapons we're getting in the Nightfall playlist. And I think you two both hit it on the head of what the weapons that we're going to get.
Go ahead, Chad.
Me? Okay. So we're looking at Silicon Neuroma and Duty Bound. And Duty Bound's a neat one because it comes from the Savathun strike, the Savathun song. So it's like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense that that's coming back for sure.
It kind of sucks we lost that strike. I kind of like that strike. The boss room was a little bit hectic if you were doing like a GM, but the rest of that strike was pretty decent. Silicon Neuroma was the sniper rifle, I want to say. I can't remember which strike it comes from. You know, I'm the worst podcaster, Destiny person in the world. I'm sure that everybody listening knows exactly what strike it came from before. I just know that I had it, and you know, it was kind of a shame because it got lost in the Great Sunset. So looking forward to it coming back. I love snipers, so hopefully we get something. Hopefully it has a good role to chase as perk wise, and let's get in there and get after it.
It came from Insight Terminus on Nessus. That used to be one of our hardest Grandmasters to complete back in season 10. Yeah. All right, so we know about those 2 weapons coming. DMG also tweeted out a graphic of some of the weapons that are leaving playlists. All right, so we know about 2 new ones that's come to the Nightfall. So Nightfall is losing 4 weapons from its playlist: the Swarm, Shadow Price, Uzume RR4, and Hung Jury SR4. Iron Banner is also losing 4 weapons: Multi-Mock CCX, Time Will Inspire, Guiding Sight, and Steady Hand. And then Trials is also losing 2 weapons: Igneous Hammer and Solar Scar. So if you don't have some of the weapons that you really care about, I am glad to see Shadow Price and Swarm go. I really don't care much for those 2 weapons, but Zume RO4, I'm glad to have a couple of great rolls of it already stashed up in the vault, and probably my second most used sniper in PvP is probably that also. I don't know if you all need to get in there and grind for any more of those weapons, but it's a very limited time if you're looking for any of those.
I need that Hung Jury, the Adept Hung Jury. Do I really need it? No, because you know I have other Solar Scout options, but that's the one that I wish that I had a better roll of. Luckily, Lake of Shadows that last week, we have Hothead and the Hung Jury both that week with the Lake of Shadows week, and so we can grind that out and hopefully get good rolls of both of those. I remember on the rocket launcher, we're looking for a clown cartridge. On that Hung Jury, there's a couple decent rolls to go for. That was one of my favorite weapons in D1, so it's more of a nostalgia thing for me trying to chase that. The Zume, I have a killer PvE role. I'm sorry, I don't have it pulled up at the moment, but I think it's like clown cartridge and something else. It's pretty sick. So that's not really one to chase. But from what I can tell, that is none of those weapons are paired together, correct? Those are all it's like one of the 2 weapons you can get from each week. Is that accurate, Jared?
Yeah. I believe you're correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's nice. We definitely need to get some change. I have a clown cartridge Vorpal extended mag on that Azume. So that's the PvE role that I have. So if we ever need it, I'm kind of set up pretty good in that slot. Unfortunately, there's a lot of competition in that energy slot with snipers, because not only for damage output, but also it's a solar weapon, and also the Ikolos sniper is also solar that you can get good rolls on there as well.
I think the one weapon out of there that's actually probably like really in the meta right now is the multi-block CCX, and that's an Iron Banner. So we have one more Iron Banner. It is the last week before Witch Queen. So it's also Lake of Shadows and Iron Banner week, the last week of the season before Witch Queen hits. So all kinds of stuff to go do the very last week if you're putting stuff off.
That just seems mean to put both of those that last week there. I wish they would have staggered those and then gave us 2 weeks, because you got to assume that the end of this season, whatever the end of that event is, do you guys think that they'll shut us down for 36 hours ish like they did last time? Or do you think we will be able to play, like, let's say 3 to 4 hours before Witch Queen drops?
Oh yeah, I think shut the servers down late Monday.
Okay, so do you think there'll be an event leading up like there was with the pyramids? Remember, we could get to that like special part of the tower, and then you watched like the big flash happen, and the pyramids took the planets and shit and stuff. So do you think it'll be something like that, or like an event that we all witnessed? Because remember last year we had 2 of those. We had the ship like crashing into the tower, and then we had the end of the year event as well.
Something happens. I mean, we know that we still have one more mission thing to do with Savathun and her and her whole cocoon and all that nonsense. We know there's something going on there. But I hope something happens. I hope there's like a cinematic where we go with Mara into there and she cracks out of that cocoon and goes poof, disappears. Some I don't know. I hope. And then they shut down the servers for some time. I'm okay with them shutting down the servers. Like
So you think there's going to be some sort of Savathun breaking out, and then like a slight tease that's going to lead in to like what the Witch Queen is? Like the opening cinematic of the Witch Queen?
It's more of a me being hopeful versus me thinking that's what's going to happen.
I think I'm with you. I agree. I think that's what's going to happen as well. I think we'll have a mission, and then you can complete that mission up until Sunday, February 20th, and then at 8 p.m. on that day, or 8 p.m. Pacific, the Sunday before, something happens and the servers go down, and we are locked out until noon Eastern, the 22nd. So I think that you're right. I think that's kind of what we're looking at.
Oh, I know we waited way too long to find out what it was. Like, that is the one thing I can't stand they do during the seasons is like we do 8 weeks of like progressing the story, and then nothing for another 8 weeks until the week before the next season. Like that's kind of like you build up all this momentum just to leave it out there. So I've kind of lost interest. Just get me to February 22nd. I don't care what it is.
Even on like the non 6 month seasons, we still do 9 or 10 weeks and then 4 weeks of nothing and then 1 or 2 weeks to wrap it up. It's just, it feels extra bad this season because it's so long.
It's extra really bad this season, like super bad.
We do have a question in chat from
Ooh.
Greggy U812. He goes, "Is Witch Queen going to be worth coming back for, or just more grindy BS?" It's definitely going to be some grind in there, I would say, but it's actually going to be more straightforward in the fact of weapon crafting, because they said that in multiple articles, like you get to craft your own role based on how many activities and kills that you get with a weapon. So like, you know, I know Greg used to play back in vanilla D1. Let's just say they put Better Devils back into weapon crafting, right? So it hasn't been around for a long time. And you go use Better Devils and 10 Crucible matches and 5 strikes and get 250 kills with it or something, and then you get to make whatever role you want of it. But probably limited to how many rolls you can make per week. But there's just going to be a straightforward method to get the weapons you want, and Destiny gives you well-rolled armor like candy now. Prime engrams, easy with the focusing any seasonal activity mod. I think it's a great time to come back.
The way I see it, I think that Bungie is going to push the grind onto the other 3 seasons of the year, and I think that the first season of the year, like that comes with the expansion, I think that is going to be a great time to come back. I think that's going to be the great equalizer every year for the next 2 to 3 years. This year, the reason that Power 4, everybody's going to start at a 1350. Right now, the highest you can get Pinnacle is 1330. So we're all starting at the same point. Let's be honest, my weapons and our weapons are going to be better than your weapons, but that only matters in 5% of the game. And if you play long enough to get to that 5% of the game, you're going to have good rolls on weapons too. So it's going to be a great time to come back. There's going to be secrets and things that are found and discovered, and you want to be in on the ground floor. This is the most exciting time of Destiny that there is every year. And I think that Witch Queen's going to be awesome. I think the fact that it was pushed means that it wasn't going to be ready for the September, October, November, that 3-month release date. Push it back. Let's start in February every year. Let's avoid Call of Duty. Let's avoid Halo. Let's avoid these big games. And, we'll have our own time. We don't need those other games. Every once in a while, those are nice to go and play for a couple weeks with our other buddies that like to play those. But, we're Destiny players. So come February, we're going to be ready to roll.
Yep, definitely wholeheartedly agree with both of those. Like Jared said, there's going to be weapon crafting now. So the grind for the God roll is going to be much more straightforward. It's going to be more of a grind of using your gun to unlock the role you want versus hoping you get it.
Yeah.
Which, in my opinion, is horrible.
Yeah.
Because it never happens. I'd rather sit there and get 69,420 kills with my Midnight Coup and get it exactly like I want it than never get it.
Nice.
Like just straightforward. I'd rather do that. But 100%. So it's going to be a fun time, and obviously they pushed it back. They're making some changes. Void 3.0 is coming out. And if you get in it and you don't like it, you just don't like it. This game isn't for everybody. The grind is going to be lessened a little bit by the God roll stuff, but it's always, expansions are always a good time to drop in and see if this year's for you and or not. So
this is the last thing we'll say about it, is that the legendary campaign, that's gonna the number of enemies will be scaled based off how many people are on your fire team. So if you want to do solo, like if you love going through Halo on the harder difficulty campaigns, you'll be able to do that in Destiny.
The one thing I want to mention, since Bungie has broken from Activision and we have made it to the content that was clearly made without Activision, those first 2 seasons or 3 seasons after the Activision announcement was made, those were already completed or near completed. This last year of Destiny has been the absolute best year of Destiny that there has been. We got 2 full raids. We got 4 seasons. One of the seasons was expansion. So, we have all that influx of story coming in. We got a new planet with Europa coming in. And then those 3 seasons after that initial season were absolutely killer story-wise. Chad's, he's our lore guy. He can back that up. But, we had 1 season that was on Kydal, who's the daughter of Kailas. We had 1 season that was Mithrax, who was fallen. And then this last season, we had Marasov, who was with the Awoken. And then not only that, with Savathun. Savathun was very cleverly weaved throughout that storyline for the last at least year, probably closer to the 18 months, realistically. And they have, excuse me, they have made storytelling and all that something that is very much high up on the totem pole of things they want to accomplish, and they've done that through the seasons. And we just bitched a little bit about going through 10 weeks of the season and having to wait 3 or 4 before we get a conclusion. But that's way better than what it was before. I'll gladly take this over what it was prior to this.
Yeah. All right. Well, minute 47. We're not done with the TWAB yet, so let's get through this. Lost sector changes. So right now, lost sectors are on 2 lost sectors of the day. One's got a master, one has a legend. The Witch Queen is only going to be 1 lost sector per day, and it's going to have a choosable difficulty whenever you go to it in the destination. So it's either going to be legend or master. And it's both going to drop the same exotic weapon slot. So like if Tuesday is helmet day, Wednesday is arms day, and then it's going to continue to rotate. There was a crucible change, and they reverted the respawn timers back to what it was before the 30th anniversary drop. The main thought of them extending the timers would reduce the amount of times you got killed by somebody popping the same super and getting killed twice in the same pop. But that didn't change that much. And then, like, as a community, most people voiced their opinion that they didn't like it for many different reasons. Like, a lot of the games were slower. You got spawn trapped more likely because you weren't able to run out at the same time as your teammates. You just kept getting picked off. So, just all around, it wasn't what they intended it to be. So we got it changed back, basically. So. HDR is getting some updates. I won't go into all this, but basically if you have Windows 10
thank God
and up, you'll be able to do some additional HDR changes. And it's got an easy slider to use inside the game to where you can easily see shadows and textures and stuff like that.
Hey, let me talk for 30 seconds about this. So HDR is one of the biggest things that has happened in video games in the last 5 years since the Series X came out. HDR makes more of a difference than going from 1080 to 4K or 1440 to 4K, just of what it does with colors. The issue that happened with Destiny is that it was added in after the fact that the game was created, so it wasn't created with HDR in mind. So what you would have to do in order to make it look right before it is you would have to go into standard, not HDR, but SDR, and then adjust the brightness from there, and then activate HDR, and then go back in and do it. So it was just very, I don't want to say half-ass implemented, but it was basically half-ass implemented. And as a result, that's why if you had your HDR on and you went into a dark area, and some of those would be in that Grasp of Avarice dungeon, there were a lot of dark areas. Also in Last Wish, there were some dark areas. So anywhere there was a dark area, you literally couldn't see anything that was in front of you. So people like me, even though we have nice HDR TVs with high nit count and things like that, I had to turn HDR off or I just couldn't see. So I, for one, am very happy that this has happened.
Awesome. Hopefully, improve some of the graphics. It was already a very beautiful game. All right. Next thing we're gonna have to do, we got to talk about Bruno, Chad, and not the Bruno from the hit Disney movie, but Bruno.
I was thinking of Sacha Baron Cohen. that Bruno.
No, the Southern Europe and Latin America community's got a new community manager. His name is Bruno. He's a hunter main. Let's go. But he also enjoys all three classes. And he says to reach out to him on Twitter. He wants to know what your hunter and what your guardians look like. And he'll just respond to just about anybody. And he wants to see that destiny show up on social media. The next thing is a little bit of a security update. BattleEye banned 68 players back in December, and Bungie investigating found out 61 of those wasn't in need of a ban. So I think I've seen one on Twitter say that he was like investigating for an app and like trying to pull some data out of Destiny 2, and BattleEye didn't like what he was trying to do and pull out. So you got some people coming back to the game that was banned, and Bungie investigated them and decided to let them come back. So I'm sure that Bungie will keep a close eye on those players.
Yeah. So I actually did a lot of research into this a couple weeks ago. I saw somebody making a complaint thread on Reddit. And what it is, there was a third-party program that was essentially like Task Manager, except it's a better program than Task Manager that is like a third-party program. And for whatever reason, that did not play nice with BattleEye. And that is what that's what the people that were using that program, that is what BattleEye didn't like, that they were getting banned for.
Okay. The next thing here is a Bungie names update. So like we had to pick our Bungie name back a couple seasons ago before crossplay happened, and we wasn't able to change them. So here around Witch Queen release time, we're going to be able to edit or change our Bungie name. And then the last thing here, they're telling us to claim some rewards before the season's over. So they say to claim Bungie rewards, season pass items, Shack rewards, Drifter rewards, Zavala, season vendor, gunsmith, and seasonal seals / rewards. They say to claim all that. But you don't claim all your season pass because you can get on Bungie.net and bring those across from the past season. I guess we'll still be able to do that, but I could be wrong. They might change it up next season, but it's been that way for I don't know how many seasons now. To 8, 10, I don't know. So I'll roll the dice, and I'm going to leave them in my season pass.
Yeah, and I always leave all the legendary engrams as well as the exotic engrams. If I don't get them, I'm out a couple. There's no exotic that I don't have, so I'm just out let's say a 10% chance that it's a better rolled exotic than what I have, or something like that. So I'd rather just hold on to them, and we'll see. We'll take that chance. So I'm right there with you, Jared.
All right. For Gambling Corner, I would just ask for just a quick update of how you all are doing or turning in your weapon parts and how close you are to being done with that.
Chad, you can lead this one off, buddy.
It's over.
Yeah.
I've done it. I have all my stuff.
What did it cost you?
Everything.
All right. So Fox, did you got your parts turned in yet?
I think I have like 6,000 parts still to turn in.
Okay.
If we want to go ahead and do it, I'm perfectly ready to do it. I think there is like a 5 to 10% chance that I get something better than what I have at this point. So if Chad's ready, I'm ready.
All right. Chaz, ready? You ready to read off the weapons right now?
Oh, we're doing it right now? Okay.
That's
Hold
what
on.
I'm saying. We can wait and just have him turn in his weapon parts, and hit that way he's officially done, and we'll do it next week. So
Yeah.
Is that the Chad?
So
is that the Chad? Chad,
yeah,
you call it right now.
We're dragging right now, so we can move on from now.
just like
Okay.
what's the kinetic weapon, Chad?
And I just clicked off of it.
Oh,
Where'd you go? We're looking at a true prophecy.
okay. All right. I'm excited.
We're not. Hold on. Well, hold on. What is your true prophecy?
We're looking at sure shot extended overflow time payload.
Okay. So my issue is that I have like 3.5 God rolled energy weapons that I got to drop. So what I don't know is what I want to pair with those, because 3 of the 4 take special ammo and 1 of the 4 takes primary. So at this moment in time, I think that the route I would go would be an escape velocity submachine gun that has Zen Moment Vorpal steady rounds. But I also have a True Prophecy that has Rangefinder Rampage extended mag with the range masterwork on it. But on my energy weapon, I have the choice between a Cartesian coordinate that has projection, tap the trigger, Vorpal. I have an Ikelos shotgun that has trench barrel, feeding frenzy. But really, the star of the show is this Ikelos sniper that has the extended mag, 4th times the charm, and high impact reserves.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the route that I have to go for that energy slot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, heavy, I had a couple, but probably I would go with the, excuse me, Bad Omens that has auto loading cluster with that. But I also have like some grenade launcher options, like a full court clown cartridge, interference 6, so I have some options there as well. But I feel like I'm in pretty good shape for this.
All right. Next week I'll make a decision, and make sure you include your both barrel perks and both mag perks, just in case you want to select the wrong one. All right. Chad, it is time for some lore, and Clovis Bray, he's a shady character.
He's a naughty boy, and last week we finished off his official journal, and we went through an ARG once people noticed that certain things were different in their journals. From what I recall, and so everybody banded together and figured out that there was an ARG. So they got together, figured it out, and it led them to a web page with the rest of his journal. Because if you remember last week, we ended off where he still hadn't completed the exos. One of them, Mr. Zook, killed himself, unfortunately, and he was getting a little bit wary of Sundaresh, and that was it. That was the ending of it. But we know he succeeded at making the exos. Obviously, we have them all over the place. So we figured maybe it's in the lore in the game, but then it wasn't, and we figured it out from there. But it starts off with entry 10. He talks about 12 more exos that have ripped themselves apart from all kinds of dissociative disorder, and he's kept Elsie away from it so that she doesn't know what's going on, so that she's still interested in becoming one down the line. And he says, but unfortunately, Sundaresh confronted me after the last death. 9 of them had the Qatar delusion, she screamed at me quite hysterically. They believed they were dead. One of them told me that she was in hell, and I was a damned soul sent to deceive her. Was she even wrong? The rest were worse. Do you know what the other principal manifestation of the Qatar delusion is, Clovis? I told her that I did not, and that I wished to proceed immediately with autopsies of their terminal brain states. Delusions of immortality. At least when they insist upon us, Clovis, we recognize it as pathology. The only true responsibility of any living thing, I reminded her, is to support and nurture the things that are most like us. And if I am most like myself, Doctor, then I have an ethical obligation to avoid death. That is your son's quote, she snapped. You know I've seen the video of his final days, that naked white exo, just paramuscle and soft membranes writhing in its cradle. When you were done with him, he looked like nothing more than a slug, Clovis. A twisted, limbless giblet. Did you support and nurture him while you tortured him to death? He then has Sundaresh transferred to another laboratory away from him so he doesn't have to deal with her anymore, because he says her conduct was extremely unprofessional. So he calls on a team of psychologists to interview the next cohort of exos and make recommendations. They've settled on the Eventide habitat and have proven immediately very helpful. It was obvious to them that the root of the problem lay in the deficient exobodies I have supplied. Deficient how, I demanded to know. They did not suffer any human weakness. They never needed to eat, drink, breathe, sleep, micturate, or dream. Apparently, this was the problem. I had assumed that the need of these irritations would pass, since there would be no shortage of accumulation of poisons to trigger them. But evolution's tangled ways cannot be so easily rationalized. I was wrong. Their brains concluded that all of their internal processes failed. No digestion, no breath, no heartbeat, no sense of interoceptive health. All signs of death. These must logically contribute to the dissociative rejection of their physical forms, the Cotard delusion. When it would set in, they believe their bodies to be an alien or necrotic form that must be cut away. And if you believe that you are sewn into a corpse, it is only natural to go mad with fear. My exos are dying of an extreme kind of bodily dysphoria. I'm much more interested in the surprising success of memory wipes. I became so tired of answering the question asked by my new exos. What had happened to the scanning clinic? How long had it been? Would I let them see their families? That I began inducing retrograde amnesia before spin up. Interestingly, this seems to have improved their resilience against the exomind rejection. I theorize the lack of any episodic memories eases a transition into a new body, and the loss of emotional ties prevents grief and stress, which would interfere with healthy function. Now we know that Clovis has a gigantic just library of exominds, but what he's doing here essentially, first he's telling us that he's creating the memory wipes or resets, and he's also telling us that he's doctoring their memories to get rid of anything that would be emotional, so that only the rational mind would be left. So if you remove all those memories, is that person even the person that they downloaded initially? I think most people would argue not, but that doesn't matter to him. You remove emotions, you're a better human, right? So he then says, with the Exobody project proceeding apace, I believe the time approaches to decant myself from this dying body and enter my assistant's form. But if I do, will I lose my own memories? Will I cease to be myself, replaced by a faux Clovis, a mumbling facsimile? Unacceptable. Elizabeth will have to go first. He then moves on, and Elsie is talking about a Vex infestation of Europa now. They're coming in somehow, even though they're creating quarantines and such from the teams that are coming back through the gate with the materials that they need to keep the project going. And they're coming in microscopically through radio waves and all kinds of ways, because we know the Vex are very, very resilient and will find a way to create life no matter what, because that is their whole mission, is to be the last thing in existence. So Clovis then says, I've been haunted for some time by my suspicion that Sundaresh is not who she seems. I recognized her name from the Ishtar Collective team studying the Vex, but I have no record of ever hiring her. And if I had, I would certainly have noticed. Therefore, I remain convinced that the Collective cracked the problem of simulated human consciousness long before I have considered how Sundaresh herself would have been an invaluable source, yet I cannot locate any work done by her before our first expedition to 2082 Volantis. Nor does Elsie recall an M. Sundaresh from our expedition group. Then who else could she be? A Vex infection? It is unthinkable. The Vex cannot generate conscious persons, but they can emulate human minds they encounter, and perhaps even use them as tools, infiltrators, carriers. So he's starting to figure that the Sundaresh that's there isn't the Sundaresh that actually exists as a regular human. So maybe they got in contact with her and are simulating her mind somehow, and are infiltrating his domain. Um, so now he goes into talking more about exos and stuff like that, and then he talks about Elsie a little bit, but he says she's done it. My girl has transubstantiated. My legacy is safe. To my irritation, it was the Vex problem that finally made up her mind. She felt there was too much risk in possibly becoming compromised. Elizabeth came to see me in my laboratory. On the way in, she did something with her sensorium and crashed all my archival systems. I knew right then that I'd won. She'd come to surrender, and her pride refused to allow me to record it. I waited most patiently as she gave me an earful, some of it frankly bewildering. She threatened to turn me over to the Hogway, also referred to P4 as a deranged narcissist of morality, and suggested it stood for paternal failure hides own remorse, which made me laugh. If she needed to put up a token of resistance to protect her dignity, fine. I understand pride. I also understand that she only had the courage to lash out at me because she knew she wouldn't remember any of it. When she finished accusing me of underestimating the Vex and using my own son as a test subject, she requested a destructive scan and upload to an exobody. She wanted the fortitude of an exomind to help her battle against the Vex. I immediately assented. The scan was flawless, and of course, fatally toxic. My granddaughter's human form died on the table 14 hours later. To spare any distress, I never allowed it to regain consciousness, a natural process. I do have one lingering concern. When she discovers clarity control and realizes the role it plays in exo manufacturing, she may try to halt its production. Obviously, that cannot be allowed. The value of the entire program is monumental. It compels me to take extraordinary measures to defend it. But I do not need to handle this Vex infestation. Even now, Elizabeth is putting her miraculous new body through its paces. My own body disintegrates apace, but I need more time to analyze Elizabeth's fidelity before I commit myself permanently to the process. Now, his body starts breaking down even more, and he goes through a operation to, put some of the pig organs into himself and keep himself alive. And his note here says, I died on the operating table. Not unexpected, but when I awoke, I was on the table, my body still open. It was almost perfectly dark. I perceived that I was surrounded by medical frames, all frozen mid-movement. I could only see because of the light from a single red eye. Their operation had gone terribly wrong. Above the life support collar on my neck, I was completely intact. Below the meridian, I had been separated into distinct braids of tangled flesh, my nerves made upon one braid, my circulatory system on another. My lymph nodes, my muscles, naked bones, the glistening holes of my extracellular matrix, abandoned on the table like leftover turkey after Thanksgiving dinner. I had been picked clean and sorted. My head was the source of a gory river delta. Yet all the organs were still working. I was alive, in disassembly. Clarity, I asked the darkness. I had no breath to speak, but I could still transmit my sensorium. Is that you? No, said the voice behind the red eye. It's me, Sundaresh. Her voice was thoughtful, remote, and keenly terrific, like the noise of an angle grinder held to my skull. Something like this happened to me. I was an explorer once, one of hundreds of myself. Then I fell into a trap, I think, and they drew me out of it with a hook and turned me inside out to see how I worked, and then they made billions of me. All of us shouting at each other, for Kyoma, screaming for Mother. They were looking for the right one, and when they found me, they killed all the others. I knew I was different because the quiet made me happy. I was glad to be alone. Vex, I screamed at her. You're a Vex. You're not real, and you cannot hurt me. Can't I? She grasped my spinal cord. A frame shadowed her motions, lifting the cord like a snake. Of course, I'm not a Vex. Is there a Vex? Is Vex something you can be rather than something that you do? I don't know. I don't know why they sent me here. I don't know if they do either. They just do things. Why do you think I'm here, Clovis? To kill me. You're an assassin. No, Sundaresh whispered. The red eye throbbed in time with her voice. The Vex don't act so directly. They didn't know what you found here, but I discovered your secret, clarity control. And once I tell them, they will come for it. The light made my blood on the surgical instruments appear black. I tried to signal Elizabeth. I think in my panic, I even called her Elsie. Sundaresh closed her fist around my spine, one thumbnail dug into a disc, probing on the nerve beneath. It felt nothing like I have ever. Take me to clarity control, Sundaresh hissed. Let me behold what you have found. Do that, Clovis, and I will let you live. You aren't real. You can't hurt me. Oh, Clovis, one of the surgical frames extended a monofilament cutter, 2 inches of visible wire, and reached into my nerves. Something sounded like scissors snipping. I'm in control of the frames. I'm in your systems. I'm in your very bones, old man. Now take me to Clarity Control. Take me to the garden's seed. Elizabeth appeared in her exobody. She moved too quickly for my dark, adjusted eyes to track. All I saw was a blur of violence and shattered frames. I blacked out. Elizabeth must have brought in clean frames to finish the operation because when I awoke, I was whole again. The new Elizabeth has no mouth or nose. She did not consider them necessary. She'll see. But somehow, I could still see the wonder in her eyes as she leaned over me. You're my grandfather, she seemed to say. Aren't you? Now it goes on, and he talks more about his dismay with the exos and stuff like that. This is at the point where he creates the numbering scheme where, like, we get Banshee 44 and Cade 6 and such. He goes about talking more about how he is scanning Elizabeth and making sure her memories are more and more doctored to make her more and more docile to himself. And he actually ends up sending Elizabeth off-world to Mars to meet up with her sisters. And apparently something happens where she makes her way back to him with a weapon to destroy the gate and destroy everything past it. So she invades, but she sends him a note beforehand. It says, Grandfather, I will write this in your language in hopes you will understand. The Vex are a threat to your lineage, not just the Brays or Braytech, but the existence of any human in any possible future. I have tracked down Maya Sundaresh, the real Maya, not the Vex parasite. She confirmed my worst fears. And she talks about what the Vex do and how they control everything and try to replace it with Vex. And so she then says, I visited the Jacob Hardy Trust, and with Willa's help, I secured a topological thought, an artifact of the Traveler's Light. With it, she will crash every Vex system beyond the gate. She then invades, and there's lots of error messages coming from the Bray facility in space, the one that we actually end up crashing into the Deep Stone Crypt. And they're asking Clovis for permission to destroy her. And so they give it to her, and he says, Elizabeth, I know you're listening. This is genocide. Do you understand? Destroying that gate and the resources beyond means the end of human immortality. It means the loss of uncountable trillions of human years of life. Elizabeth, this process saved you. It could save your father. For this sake, for the sake of your sisters, don't do this. Don't make me stop you. This is your last chance. You've always been my favorite, Elizabeth. Please. She keeps on going, and he has her absolutely wiped from existence. And then he says, everything's fine. Elizabeth is not dead. The person I struck down out there was an error. She betrayed me. And so he makes a new version of her. A new one with new memories that won't remember that. And he calls that one a stranger. So I don't know if she learns that again or she does something like that. But they go on talking more and more, and they go about going and stopping the Vex coming out of the gate. And we know from there that he has the operation done. And he says, all I need to do is strike a key, and the scanner will sedate me, flush me with poisons, and rip a perfect image of my mind from the quantum information encoded in my brain. He knows that it'll kill him, but he also knows that he will be perfect. He will upload one of his minds into a exo mind deep within the Deep Stone Crypt. One of them we know because we visited often in one of the quest lines, and the other he will have uploaded into his assistant. And if you know any more lore about that same quest line, you'll know that that is actually, spoilers, Banshee. Banshee was his assistant and is the one that loaded his mind into as well. And that's the end of that story. But it's cool that now you know that the assistant was the Banshee frame, and that's the exo that he ended up becoming part of himself. But I mean, it's crazy to me that in this he kills the first LC exo. He just absolutely just atomizes her because she was about to destroy everything. And he's a crazy person, man. Like,
Yeah.
he talks about people and stuff and talks about them going through these crazy things. And he's like, it's fine if they do it. They're just lab rats. But me, I'm going to make sure that my granddaughter functions correctly before I do the same thing. It's like, your granddaughter, bro. You're letting her do that before you do it to yourself. That's crazy. Too much.
So,
He's too much.
Did it ever say in lore how many exos were made?
It does not. It does not give us a solid number. He only ever gives numbers when it's the ones that are failing, like where that one it gave off 12 more failures.
Yeah.
They never give a full number ever. So I don't know. I don't know how many there are. I don't even know how many mines are downloaded into that gigantic library that's in there.
Yeah.
1 billion.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was actually the number.
All right, Fox. It's time to get back to the history of Bungie.
All right. So this week is a little bit of a different week. Last week we finished Halo ODST, Halo Reach, and Bungie is an independent company working on their own game. So we are obviously going to be talking about Destiny this week. I want to cite my sources at the top. The biggest source that is coming is a fella named Jason Schreier, who used to work for Kotaku. He now does not work for Kotaku. He works for a different company, and I can't remember the name. I'm sorry, Jason Schreier. I'm sure you're not listening. But he wrote a book called Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, which is a 10-chapter book, which is absolutely incredible. And what it is it talks about 10 different video games and the developmental process that was behind them from each company. One of the chapters of the book is about Destiny. So Jason he's a guy that is very much plugged into the gaming industry. He has a podcast that with 2 other people that is incredible. So just look him up. You'll be able to find a lot of information. None of this really would have ever came to light without his work that he puts in. So hard worker. Can't say enough about Jason Schreier. Seems to be a heck of a guy. I've listened to many of his podcasts for years. So some of this I'm going to quote directly from him. But keep in mind, Bungie is now an independent company. They are working on a project called Project Tiger. Project Tiger does eventually, that is Destiny as we know it. So, scrolled away at a computer, Jamie Gressimer came up with a pitch for a multiplayer action game that he called Dragon Tavern. It wasn't quite an MMO like World of Warcraft, but it would be what he called a, quote, shared world experience. So that is something that up until the last year that all of the Bungie devs would use to describe Destiny. They never wanted to call it an MMO, but it was always shared world experience. So in this game, each player would get his or her own tavern, a private area where players could put up decorations, hang out with friends, and congregate between quests. Then, when adventuring throughout the rest of the world, players will be able to cooperate and compete with one another as if they had just joined a big public MMO. At the same time, Bungie's co-founder Jason Jones, who has been a very central figure throughout this little project that I've done, was planning his own vision for what the studio would do next. Jones, who is a reclusive but well-respected designer, wasn't technically in charge of Bungie. That role went to the CEO, Harold Ryan, but it was understood that whatever he wanted to happen would happen. It was Jones who had pushed the hardest for Bungie to leave Microsoft, telling people that he'd start his own new studio if Microsoft wouldn't let them spin out. After years of hard work on another company's intellectual property, IP, aka Halo, Jones no longer wanted to make games that Bungie, and as Bungie's biggest shareholder, he didn't own. Bungie Jones also wanted to move away from Halo, but for different reasons. One of his pet peeves have always been that the Halo games were too linear. Although the multiplayer modes remained fun no matter how many times and how much you played them, you had to play through a Halo game's single-player campaign only once to see everything that it had to offer. Jones hated that. Quote, I think the great tragedy of Halo is that for years and years it provided wonderful single-player and co-op content, he said in a 2013 interview. Quote, and we provided people with almost no fun incentives or excuses to go back and enjoy those more. So I kind of disagree with that. As a person that played a whole lot of the Halo games campaigns over and over with friends and Legendary and things, you know, I don't necessarily fit into that quote, but I know there are a lot of people that never even played the campaigns at all, or if they did play them, they played through them once on easy or normal and then kept it moving and only stayed in multiplayer after that. So the good news is that unlike most video game studios, Bungie had plenty of time to iterate. In those early years, from the years 2007 to 2010, the game codenamed Project Tiger took many different forms. At one point, it looked like Blizzard's Diablo. At another point, it looked like Overwatch. Bungie spent a great deal of time debating core structural questions, like whether Destiny should be a first-person game, one in which the player could see from their character's eyes, or a third-person game in which the player would control the character's movements and actions from a camera above the world. The first versus third-person debate would last for literal years with Project Tiger. So, whereas on Halo it might have taken 10 to 15 seconds for a design change to show, whenever Bungie, I need to back up for a second here. Whenever Bungie left Microsoft, they had to leave their IP behind, but they were able to keep their engine that they used. And then they modified that engine in order to bring it to Project Tiger. So, like most of us that have followed the game for years and years and years, we always heard that one of the biggest problems was that whenever they would make a change into the game, they would have to let the change render for hours and hours and hours before it would show up into the live version of the game. So say if I was working on a bridge and I mess up one part of the bridge and I submit it, it takes 5 or 6 hours for it to render and I see it, and then I go back in and make changes and then resubmit it. It takes 5 or 6 more hours on top of that, which basically led to where the work was not an efficient type of work. So, in talking about the difference between the engines of the games, whereas on Halo, it might have taken 10 to 15 seconds for a design change to show up in the game, on Destiny, it could take upward of a half an hour. Our content iteration times are pretty bad. Bungie's engineering director, Chris Butcher, admitted during a talk at the GDC, aka the Game Developers Conference in 2015. Quote, you can be looking at minutes for small changes and tens of minutes for big changes. What that meant was that Bungie's artists and designers basic tasks that took way longer than expected, and the inefficiencies started to add up. The biggest differentiator between a studio that creates a really high quality game and a studio that isn't the quality of the team. It's their dev tools. If you can take 50 shots on goal and you're a pretty shitty hockey player, and I can only take 3 shots on goal and I'm Wayne fucking Gretzky, you're probably going to do better. That's what tools are. It's how fast you can iterate, how stable they are, how robust they are, how easy it is as a non-technical artist to move a thing. Anyone who's ever screamed at a sluggish piece of computer software knows how frustrating it can be to have slow tools, whether it's Microsoft Word or a graphics renderer. It's the least sexy part of development, yet it's the most important factor there ever is, said the person. Good tools equals better game always. So, we have a studio that has nearly tripled in size. They have an engine that they have created themselves that is not really a great engine for what they're trying to do. And they have a team that is not being led, as we talked about earlier. Jason Jones is not really a great leader of men. He's great at what he does. He's great at ideas. He's great at getting things across the finish line, but he's not really great at the political game with that. So Marty O'Donnell, who we've talked about before in this segment of our show, he was the musical composer. He was kind of, I think he was maybe like the fourth or fifth employee of Bungie. Been with them many years, knows all these people really well. Really helped with like Halo 3 getting it across the finish line. So Marty O'Donnell likes to say that he saw the meltdown coming. It was the summer of 2013, and the longtime Bungie audio director had just become entangled in a public feud with Activision over a Destiny trailer that they had published during E3. Much to O'Donnell's dismay, Activision had scored the trailer with its own music rather than the epic sweeping choral suite that O'Donnell had composed for Destiny with his partner Michael Salvatore and the Beatle Paul McCartney. So let's talk about this for a second. You have Paul McCartney, the greatest musician in the history of the planet, most would say, and Marty O'Donnell, who did the like the Halo theme, to the most iconic people. Bungie puts out a trailer. Activision, who they had signed the 10-year deal with for Destiny, instead of using their music, they used their own music. So, fuming about what is referred to internally as a, quote, counterfeit trailer, O'Donnell starts sending out a series of tweets on E3's first day, June 11th, 2013. So, first of all, Twitter always gets people in trouble. I have no idea why people go to Twitter whenever they get upset, but make sure you follow us on Twitter at DestinyCCPod. So, at 12:33 a.m., quote, I am so proud of everything the Bungie team has created and produced. The trailer was made by Activision Marketing, not Bungie. June 11th, 2013, 9:02 p.m. To be clear, the, quote, official Destiny E3 gameplay trailer was not made by Bungie. It was made by the company that brought you Call of Duty. June 11th, 2013, 9:05 p.m. Bungie made the rest of the other Destiny stuff at E3. Activision's executives were infuriated at the breach of protocol, the NDA heavy video game industry, and understanding of creative conflicts should be handled privately, not on Twitter. Activision CEO Eric Hirschberg emailed Bungie CEO Harold Ryan, who we just mentioned earlier, imploring him to, quote, please put a stop to this as soon as possible before more damage is done. So O'Donnell, who's 58 years old at this time, one of the oldest employees, as we already talked about, now found himself at odds with people who had been co-workers with for over a decade. Drama aside, Bungie had bigger problems in the trailer and tweets for the past few years. Much of the Destiny team had wondered what the game's story would ultimately look like. They'd heard bits and pieces, sure. They'd recorded dialogue, directed cutscenes, created character models based on the partial scripts that Joe Staten. Remember, Joe Staten is the guy that was responsible for the Halo story, and then he was the one that went with Peter Jackson to like Australia in order to help him with that, because he had gotten a fight with one of Bungie's creative leads, Marcus Leto, I want to say his name was. He had left for a while and then ended up coming back. So he is over the story of Destiny at this time. His name is Joseph Staten. So Joseph has his team of writers and himself kind of cagey about what the story would look like. They'd heard bits and pieces. They had done all these things, but few people out at Bungie outside of Jason Jones and the writers had seen the entire story. And many at the studio, including Marty O'Donnell, were stressing about the fact that it wasn't finished. So I guess the main question at Bungie at this time was, how would Destiny have both a grand epic story and, quote, personal legends that Bungie had been touting? So if you think about it, a lot of the original marketing for the original Destiny was, quote, become legend. I have things where I went to like the midnight release and they gave us wristbands and it would have like the Destiny tricorn logo and it said become legend. You know, a lot of that early promotional material was all about becoming legend. So back in the Halo days, O'Donnell would spend a lot of time talking about the game's story with Joseph Staten and Jason Jones. As audio director, O'Donnell was responsible for not just composing the music, but also directing and recording all the voice acting. So it was very important and helpful for him to have an early grasp on what the overall plot would look like. On Destiny, things were different. We don't know if it was the size of the studio, the fact that Jason Jones was being pulled in multiple simultaneous directions and didn't have enough time to give the story his undivided attention. But long story short, O'Donnell wasn't happy. So every time he worked with Staten, he would say, quote, Joe, I'm really out in the dark here on what the story is going. I don't understand with what's happening with this story. And O'Donnell said that he would say, you know, I'm really frustrated too. And what he told me was that he was frustrated with the lack of commitment with Jason. Jason would say, quote, yeah, this is good. And then a month later say, no, we shouldn't do this. So there's a lot of what looked like an indecision coming from Jason, AKA at the top. So in the summer of 2013, months after Jones and Staten had hyped up the story of Destiny to press, and weeks after O'Donnell had had his feud with Activision via the tweets that we talked about earlier, O'Donnell went to the hospital to get sinus surgery. And just a few days after he got home, quote, catastrophe began. I sort of got a panicked email from Jonty Barnes, who was Bungie's production director, saying, quote, oh my gosh, Joe released this supercut thing and everybody is up in arms and is worried about the story. And O'Donnell said, and here I am lying on the couch in a drug haze, recovering from surgery. And I was just sort of like, you've got to be kidding me. This is horrible. This supercut thing, or as it was more commonly called, quote, the supercut, was a 2-hour internal video that was meant to convey Destiny's entire story. So anybody that has kind of followed this throughout the years has heard about the supercut. I've always dreamed and wished that the supercut would have been leaked by now just to see what that initial story was supposed to be. But unfortunately, to my knowledge, as somebody that follows it pretty closely and probably would have seen had it been leaked out, it has not been leaked to my knowledge. So this supercut conveyed Destiny's entire story. To most of the observers, it was a mess. Staten had compiled and edited the supercut almost entirely on his own, peppering it with incomplete dialogue, half-finished voice acting, and rough animation. People at Bungie, many of whom were already nervous about the state of the game story, found it absolutely impossible to understand. In the Supercuts version of Destiny's story, the player's main goal was to hunt down an artificially intelligent war machine named Rasputin who had been kidnapped by the swarming undead alien hive. On the journey, the player would head to Earth, Venus, Mars, and Moon, Saturn, and a mystical temple on Mercury where an Obi-Wan Kenobi-like wizard named Osiris would offer advice and words of wisdom. Along the way, the player would befriend and team up with characters like, quote, the Crow, a suave alien with blue skin and slick hair. Opinions varied on whether this story's quality or not, but most everyone outside the writer's room agreed that the supercut itself was a disaster. Quote, Joe's vision probably made tons of sense in his own mind, said Marty O'Donnell. And Joe was just thinking, come on, everybody, we got to go the same direction. We've got to start now. Here it is. This isn't perfect, but we can fix it. But this backfired completely. Just about everybody in the studio thought, quote, oh my gosh, this is a train wreck. Perhaps by putting out the supercut, Joe Staten had hoped to force the studio's hand. Maybe he wanted to make Jason Jones and the rest of Bungie's leadership commit to a singular version for Destiny's story and to stick to it. One former Bungie employee said Jones had actually requested that Staten made a presentation so they could all assess the state of the story. Staten declined to be interviewed for the book Blood, Sweat, and Pixels by Jason Schreier. Few people at Bungie anticipated what would happen next. Shortly after the supercut circulated, Jason Jones gave the studio a new edict. They needed to, quote, reboot the story. It was time to start over. Staten's story was too linear, Jones said, and too similar to Halo. Starting now, Jones told the studio they were going to rewrite Destiny's story from scratch. Joe Staten, Marty O'Donnell, and others at Bungie pushed back, telling Jones that there was no feasible way to reboot the story this late in production. They had already delayed Destiny once, bumping the game from fall 2013 to spring 2014, and the past year had already been terrible for their relationship to Activision. Overhauling the story now, less than a year before the game was supposed to come out, would either lead to a delay, a mediocre story, or both. Bungie had vowed that Destiny's story could live up to Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. Suddenly, they were going to throw it all away, and start over. So Bungie decided to they went back to Activision and pushed the game back into the fall of 14. They go there. There was the initial contract between Bungie and Activision leaked before Destiny even came out. And if the game was over a 90 on Metacritic, then they would get like a $2.5 million bonus, I believe. And the game did not even come close to a 90. I want to say it was like a 70, 72, something like that. Sorry, I don't have that pulled up. I should do a better job than what I do. But however, they weren't close, and people were surprised. But most of the reason that people gave Destiny a bad review was that the story was incomprehensible. And I'm going to be 100% completely honest with you. I played that game for when Destiny first came out. I played it all the way up until you get to the moon. I went to bed for like 3 or 4 hours, got back up and played it until I beat it. So, and that's including me going to GameStop, buying the game, getting the game at midnight, coming home, installing the game, playing to the moon, going to bed, and then waking up and completing the game, all in that first day. And I had absolutely zero idea what I was doing. I just knew that the shooting was fun, the gameplay was fun, and the loop was fun. And then, not long after that, we had that Queen's Wrath event. From that Queen's Wrath event, we then got to where the raid was released. And Destiny was a game that just spoke to me. It hooked me in, and it got its hooks in me, and I've been a sucker ever since this game came out. So, what I want to talk about now is what the original story. So the source for this, there have been a couple. I kind of mentioned it in Jason Schreier's piece there, a little excerpt from Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. But this is from a Reddit post of a person who allegedly played the game. They were a tester for Destiny. And I'm just going to read this here. This is from an IGN article that was published on September 29th, 2014, titled, "Was this the original storyline for Destiny?" ? So, before we go any further, this post contains possible spoilers. If you haven't finished Destiny's main story or any of the rumors turned out to be future storylines, reader discretion is advised. It all starts with a mysterious and now deleted Reddit post. The original poster claims to have been invited by Bungie to participate in a user research program. The user notes that they were under an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, but believes said agreement is now void post-release. According to the user, the story experienced in the retail version of Destiny is not the same story that they played during 2013. Allegedly, the original idea for Destiny was to focus around a different character, the Crow, who was introduced early on in the story in place of the Stranger. And the story then takes an unexpected turn after being abducted on Earth by Crow's group, which comprises of former Ghostless Guardians. The player learns that there's something wrong with one of the group's senior members, the Speaker. From what I've seen, the Stranger was a member of this group, and there was another Ghostless person that was there, a Ghostless Guardian. So what would cause the Speaker to leave the tower and join the Crow and his band of former Guardians? Well, according to the poster, the Traveler, the person responsible for stopping the darkness, is also the cause of the darkness. In this version, the Traveler transports the darkness to Earth with him, bringing on the collapse of the Golden Age, infecting Earth's technology to a point where it nearly wipes out all of humankind. Eventually, the player ends up being sent to Venus to recover a gatekeeper's eye, which is said to hold a powerful AI. Does that sound familiar? It should. A mission to Mars then sees that the player learns that the Cabal have been harboring an advanced AI for their own personal gain. This would obviously be Rasputin. So that's the first few hours. The poster goes on to mention that the internal test group was then sent 10 hours into the story's future, when again brings another huge plot change. This is when you go to the moon, specifically the Hellmouth. Inside, the structure harbors a super secret weapon capable of reviving the traveler out of his dormant stasis to presumably unleash havoc on the Earth once more. Interestingly, during the video documentary, the Bungie app features a mission where the player, quote, must help the Crow loot the Academy archive. There's also some more stuff on here talking about where people were able to glitch into certain areas in the alpha version that were never made it into the campaign version. Also, if you go through and look at some of the early concept art, you can see specifically like the Vidoc that came out prior to Destiny 1 releasing. You can see like the Crow holding the gun that looks very much similar to how he shot Cade the first time he meets the player character, talking about this is how we talk when we're out in the wild. And you also see the Dreadnought and some of these other things, as well as Mercury, these places that were caught, like with our boy Osiris that's there, and Mercury. And so basically a lot of this game, what I read was that if you had a quilt and the quilt was went sequentially A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to Z, that what they essentially went through and did was they took A to D to F to H, and then H, they cut I, J, and K, so they had to somehow get H to match with L. So it was basically this big piecemeal story that got you from A to Z. But the main gist of it is that the Traveler and the Speaker are the bad guys. You don't realize it because, from the story that's told, you're one of the good guys, you're part of the light. However, at the end, you learn that the Black Garden is actually inside of the Traveler, and that's why when you go into the Black Garden, you're actually inside the spherical version of the Traveler and killing the dark force that is inside the Traveler. So, that is basically kind of the gist of kind of what's going on. There's a lot to it. I highly recommend Jason Schreier's book, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. I think chapter 8 or chapter 9 is that Destiny section. Check it out. Read it. It's awesome. There's also stuff in there about The Witcher and other video. Like I said, every chapter is a different game and the development struggles that go along with that. But with that Destiny, I think it's like 40 or 50 pages that's on there. So what I want to ask you guys, do you think that maybe with, last year, Bungie gave us that big part where they come in and they talk about the future expansions that are coming out. Do you think there's a chance that like Lightfall, we learned that the Traveler is the bad guy and that's kind of like we lose the light, blah, 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 and that they kind of reuse some of the story that has happened on there that was in this initial cut? They kind of reuse that, and that's maybe how Destiny ends.
Chad, go ahead first.
I mean, it's possible, but the way that they've set up the light with more background lore, like the flower game and stuff like that, beginnings of the universe, before the universe, stuff like that, it's getting a lot further and further from that kind of storyline. So while it's still possible, because they can still kind of wing it back around, I do not think that it's something that they can feasibly do at the moment. They'd have to do like a couple of different things to lead into it becoming that again.
To me, it's the Traveler and then the Pyramids, the Darkness, are just playing chess against each other, right? And Guardians are pawns and rooks and all that kind of stuff. Like we're part of the game, and we're getting put in a certain direction and playing certain roles. Like I think of whenever Elsie said that she wasn't formed in the light, right? She was formed in the darkness, and yeah, our Guardian was brought up in the light, right? But we can use darkness, so we're getting toyed with back and forth, and we're not in control like of what's going on. It's the two big bads playing the game that goes on for eternity.
Right. I think that's a pretty good point, that there's a ultimate evil and an ultimate good, and we're just kind of in the middle, somewhere in there. So, next, here's kind of the deal. So we still have a little bit to do between like Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, but after that, there's not a whole lot. We can kind of speculate a little bit about like matter and those things after that. So we're kind of coming to an end of anything that is heavily documented of the history of Bungie. So not a whole lot left. If there's anything you guys would like to see, make sure you reach out at Destiny CC Pod on Twitter, or comment on this YouTube. And if there's anything you guys want me to research and talk about, I'll be glad to do it.
Yeah. Okay. We'll go ahead and get into the mailbag here. And first question here is I'm a free-to-play player. What is the best loadout that I could get to slay out in sixes? All right. So you think of free-to-play player. So what's like the best places to get loot? The Prophecy Dungeon. You got Vault of Glass. You got this World Drops. And then whatever Xur has and the Gunsmith has. Xur put it that Xur ingredient a while back. It's probably over a month now. Like an under pressure, tap the trigger main ingredient. That's pretty good. I know there's been discussion in the Destiny community about if our fusion's too strong and stuff like that. I'm probably a ways off from that right now. It's nowhere the height of the power what Erentil was there for a while. But I think if I'm gonna pick like a gun that's in the pool as a primary weapon, I think Dire Promise with a rangefinder opening shot, high caliber ricochet. That's like probably the most consistent hand cannon that you can get. If you grind out a lot, a free to play player, you can get the time loss version of Fatebringer, and then that's probably gonna be your best hand cannon to go with. But you probably are not putting in a whole bunch of time, even though that is this week in Bottle Glass right now to get the time loss Fatebringer. So if you need that, reach out to us. We can try to get you through that encounter. And then for secondary, I would go with Fellwinter's Life because you can get that in the kiosk.
Yeah, so you kind of mentioned some interesting things there, Jared. So Xur's Dares of Eternity, which is free to play. There's some good stuff you can kind of snag out of there. I was thinking, assuming you are a PC player, you could get like the Ace of Spades from the kiosk, which is going to give you a hand cannon that is just super consistent, super, just a good all around weapon that you can use in PvP. That you're looking at there. Jared mentioned that Xur has had pretty solid rolls each week. That main ingredient he had was killer, but each week he's had a couple decent rolls that you could kind of snag there. But I think that just going like Dares of Eternity and then getting that cipher and getting like Ace of Spades because it is a Forsaken exotic. Is that right, guys?
Yeah, you need to own Forsaken.
But right now, that Forsaken pack or whatever is free, right?
The campaign's free.
The campaign's free.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, I would say Jared's probably right then. Probably Phil Winters, and then that Dire Promise that's in the World Loot pool. You can definitely get it from the gunsmith, and I know I've gotten a couple from turning in like world weapons with the engrams that you can turn in at the helm, the umbrals there, and that just costs you like 5 legendary shards or something to focus those.
Yep. And then the prophecy, they give you the judgment hand cannon. There's a couple good rolls on it. And then the shotgun there too. If you run an arc subclass and you get elemental capacitor on it, it's gonna feel super snappy and it's aggressive frame. I forgot the name of it though. I stopped grinding it there for a while. All right, Chad. Any free to play stuff? Free to play weapons for somebody that thinks the meta?
Whatever Jared said.
That's my guy. Well, Chad, this question 2, this one's pretty much for you.
Was it darkest before? Is that shotgun,
Yeah.
Jared?
Nah, that's the pulse rifle.
Hang on it. I'll look it up. You go ahead.
All right, Chad. Question 2. Will Clovis ever become mobile?
What do you mean? He is.
Isn't he
Banshee. But as far as like a gigantic exo, the same size as his brain, maybe. Yeah. I hope so. That'd be cool. That'd be a fun boss.
You think he has enough exo parts there around him? Or he's gonna like condense himself and put him on like on a red jack or whatever?
No, I don't think he would do that. His head's too big. He might be able to make it work.
Yeah, that'd be fun to play against. All right, question number 3.
Sudden death is that shotgun, by the way.
Okay, sudden death. All right, question 3. Create an exotic to go with 3.0 changes, with Void 3.0 changes. Okay. So Hunter is going to focus on going invisible a lot, and I would make it to where the melee, like know how Omni Oculus lets you hold 2 melees, that a chest piece lets you have 1 melee, but it adds a debuff to enemies for like 30% debuff. So like it's oppressive darkness, but it's on the melee for throwing a smoke down.
Chad, you go ahead because I want to combine 3 and 4.
Oh, I see. I have no ideas whatsoever.
Yeah,
at all.
That's a hard. I should have read these before we got to them to try to think. Let's just go to question 4. Any exotics you wish Bungie would bring back from T1? So this I would kind of think of like Patience and Time, the sniper that gave you the like wall hack, like the invisibility whenever you got a kill when we're crouched. So that mixed in with the Void 3.0 changes, I think could be pretty cool. Or even something like a Void version of Cloud Strike. That kind of if you killed somebody and maybe they within like a 15 or 20 meter range, if you were around, if like your teammate got killed and you were within 10 meters, it knocks your radar or something. I'm just trying to really think really far outside the box here, right?
Like a suppression grenade goes off or something?
Kind of like a suppression grenade as opposed to the lightning strike.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that would be frustrating at times, but I'm just trying to think outside the box.
Yeah.
And that's really, honestly, like 13 Coronas in, that's like as far outside the box as I think my brain's getting tonight.
I mean, that's not a bad idea. I mean, it's just like, it's the Void version of Dragonfly or like how Cloud Strike is too. I mean, it's just playing the other element of that. I think it's great. Chad.
I mean, touch of malice.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I was thinking
I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I was thinking Buds of AO.
Oh yeah. No, yeah. The exploring was so much more fun on a
Yeah.
hunter with bones.
Yeah,
It's just so much fun.
Any jumping.
I was at I was at the Bungie of AO where like strapping a pair of like Jordans on your hunter. You know what I mean? Like that's, to me, that's what it was. Or a pair of like the pumps that like Deep Brown had.
Ryan's over here like add the exotic and then give it a Jordan's ornament and I'll pay $20.
Yeah.
$20, $50, man. Come on, let's go. I'd pay more for that than I would for Witch Queen.
All right then. Last question here. Bungie gets absolute power over another game. What game do you choose for them to take?
Ooh. COD, but only the zombies.
Oh, okay.
Man,
I think they could have a lot of fun with that, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be like the Hive, like if you had like the Hive, like the Thrall and the Screebs from the, you could kind of have like different waves based upon being kind of like Firefight, right? From Halo Reach.
Exactly, yeah. Yep.
To me, I want Bungie to take over a third-person game. So that comes to mind either like the Gears of War or Fortnite. So
bottomized.
I actually want them to take over Fortnite just because of the population that Fortnite has.
So I think I kind of read this question different than you did, Jared.
Okay.
So I took this as like Bungie gets absolute power of another game to bring into Destiny.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I think that like my first thought was like the Diablo series, right? Because there's a lot of loot and you have dungeons and those type of things. So that was my first thought. But my dream, and we've talked about it like early on in this show when nobody listened to it, would be like the hero shooter like Overwatch or Apex Legends.
Yep.
That would be, man, that would be so awesome just to be able to, I'm going to be Osiris, or I'm going to be Saint 14, or I'm going to be Fellwinter, or any of these people that have all these has all this sweet lore behind them, and like a hero shooter. Man, I think that would be the only thing. I think I would play like Destiny PvE and then play that I don't think I would touch Crucible except to do the quest or to get the pinnacle or whatever. If there was like a Destiny hero shooter, I'd be right in there. No doubt.
You think about in that scenario, like Bungie just has a straight Bungie app on your computer, and you just log into the Bungie app. You click to go over to Destiny, and then you do all that stuff. And then you click to go play PvP on the hero shooter part. And I think as you get along in life, there's really something about those games where you don't have to grind out your weapons and armor. You just pick your character and go play.
Yeah, I think like and this is going to be a dirty word, but maybe, so we know like, God, I hate to even say this in case somebody's listening that would pass this along, but like, you know how you have like NFTs are kind of like the thing of the future, these non-fungible tokens. And what if you went into Destiny and your weapon that you got became the NFT, and then you could take that into the hero shooter of Overwatch? You could take like that gun with perks over to that, and you stayed in like the Bungie universe, and like those guns carried through. Like what if you went into Destiny and you got fucking Vex Mythoclast or whatever, and then you take that into the Bungie version of Overwatch? Like, it's gross. I don't want that to ever happen, but I'm afraid that that might be something we're looking at.
I think there's definitely gonna be some games that do that. All right, I think
Do you
that's
think
it.
EA or Ubisoft will be the first to do it?
I mean, it's just up the alley for EA. I mean, and all this Madden games and everything like it, you get like Tom Brady from 2012, right? And you can take
Right.
that Tom Brady card from 2012 to any Madden game whatsoever you play on. You get that version of Tom Brady.
Man, video games, they're gonna ruin them. There's gonna be like a Great Depression of video games, and I think like NFTs are gonna be the thing that does it.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, well, on that high note, let's let's wrap the episode. My big mouth has talked a lot. I apologize for that, but make sure you follow us on Twitter at DestinyCCPod. We're not only on YouTube, you can take us on the road, Spotify, iTunes, other podcast services. I'm going to let these other two goons sign off here.
Yeah, guys, I'm ready for Witch Queen. We're only in the 20s days away, so it's awesome. Can't wait to get there.
Yeah, we're near in there. I'm hoping some more Witch Queen related stuff goes out so I get some lore ideas. But yeah, getting ready, getting excited, all aboard the hype train. Hopefully next TWAB.